Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza, your host here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Healing the inner child and EFT tapping. What are those things? What do they have to do with each other? How can they help each other? And what are they for? My guest today, Brinn, she will tell us all about EFT tapping, healing the inner child, and how it can definitely change our lives for the better. Welcome, Brinn. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here because I have not had anyone share about EFT tapping before. And I have tried EFT tapping. I find it extremely intriguing and I really want to know more about it. So I'm so happy that you're here to share this. But let's begin at where you were before you started going down the rabbit hole and finding all kinds of beautiful different ways to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go way, way, way back to childhood, of course, because that's where most things originate. In a way, I kind of felt like I grew up in kind of two different worlds. On one hand, I was in a very loving, supportive home, very affectionate. I said, I love you all the time. I was an accomplished athlete my entire childhood, all the way through college. Decent student, went to church on Sundays, just kind of privileged middle class life, right? But on the other hand, there was also a lot of chaos. In my home, I'm the youngest of four children, parents divorced, and there was a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, and unfortunately, a lot of abuse. So I dealt with emotional, physical, and sexual abuse inside the home. And of course, that led to a whole host of unhealthy coping skills, right? I was kind of like a poster child for trauma, but with no idea that it was trauma and nobody around me having any idea what was happening. So I started getting migraines in fifth grade. I had stomach aches all the time. I started smoking weed when I was in fourth grade and drinking alcohol really young. I was self-harming, I had a lot of anxiety, depression, and just didn't know what was wrong with me. I kind of just thought I was crazy. Like, on one hand, life was good and life was great. And on the other hand, I hated myself and thought everybody hated me. So it was really this internal turmoil that I was living with for a really long time. And then, kind of grew up and was like, oh, I'm getting out of here, right? Like, I'm gonna go to college. And that's just when all hell broke loose. That's when it came out that I had been sexually abused in the home, and it just kind of destroyed my family in a lot of ways. And it was very, just kind of, yeah, really rocked the boat. And
How did that happen? Like how you're about to go off to college and then like how did it come out? Like what happened?
yeah, so I had totally compartmentalized, disassociated from it. Like a lot of people when we grow up, we just think this is just life, this is normal. If you had asked me before I was 18, have I experienced any type of abuse? No, absolutely not. Came from a really loving home. But the reality was that there was abuse, emotionally and physically and then sexually. So one of my older siblings, he actually was dating a woman who kind of took one look at me, and she was like, she saw the signs. She kind of put things together because she had also been sexually abused. And she kind of saw some of the writing that was on the wall and encouraged one of my siblings to take me out and kind of ask me if anything had happened. So I had been sexually abused by one of my siblings. And so, one of my siblings, he was like, hey, has this happened? Has anything kind of crazy happened? And it just, he didn't know what he was asking, kind of, but it just unlocked Pandora's box. And it came out that I had been molested for 12 years out of my childhood.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so basically from the time I was 4 years old until I was almost 16.
That's incredibly, thank you for sharing such an intimate experience. And I can almost feel that faucet opening up when your sibling asked you, because it's almost like, you know when like something happens and we want to cry and we're holding it in because we don't
Mm.
want to. And then as soon as anybody asks, "Are you okay?" And then it's like, then it's like you just can't hold it back because like, oh, there's someone here who wants to know, who's going to take care of me. And it's like that certainty that, oh, it's just not going to go unheard. Like someone's here for me, that allows you to just let go. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. Somebody actually asked me the direct pointed question, and it kind of opened up the floodgates. And then, sibling sexual abuse is actually the highest form of intrafamily sexual abuse. A lot of people think of like father-daughter or, cousins or things like that, but siblings are actually the number one perpetrator, and it is something that is not really talked about in our society or in the world. But the truth is, it impacts people of all demographics, all different countries. And there's just now starting to be research and awareness on this topic. But what I've come to learn is that all of the symptoms that I was experiencing are extremely common for specifically sibling sexual abuse, but kind of sexual abuse in general. So, but it took me a really long time to figure that out because nobody was talking about it, right? I remember my parents, my dad went to the library and tried to look for books or research on the internet, and there was nothing. And this was in 2006.
Wow.
So
Incredible.
yeah, there was nothing. So anyway, that was kind of like the major catalyst. That was the real thing that like opened my eyes to the amount of trauma that I had experienced. Before that, I just thought I was crazy. I just thought I was crazy and like this was life and everybody deals with stuff. And then it kind of started peeling back all the layers of like all the different types of abuse that I had seen in my house, and the things that like went on there were actually not okay in a lot of ways. By that point, I'd gone to college and was doing really well in college and on my own. However, things started to what I call kind of leak out sideways, right? And what I mean by that is I started drinking a lot more, getting blackout drunk, getting, aggressive, like things would just kind of come out. I was having these PTSD symptoms that I didn't even know about. So it kind of got to the point where my long-term boyfriend in college, he kind of sat me down and he was like, hey, either you need some help or I'm out of here. And I'm so grateful that he had the courage to do that in a loving way, and that I had the courage to listen to him. Because at 22 years old, I could have easily written him off and been like, oh no, screw you, I'm gonna go, find somebody else. But that's what got me to go to therapy for the first time. And
Wow, so
yeah, that's what changed my life.
it really feels like this boyfriend at the time had a huge impact on you. I mean, he's like him coming and then this other person's, your other sibling's girlfriend, like it just feels like the peer support that you're receiving is it's really divine. Divine timing, right?
Yeah, and that's really how I look at it too. I was raised in a pretty spiritual household, and that has only increased throughout my life. And I believe that everything I've experienced and all the people that I've met and all the things that I've gone through have absolutely happened in the exact time that they've needed to happen in. And I believe the person who kind of had their eye on me when I was in high school that was like, hey, I think you need to ask her about this. That was definitely divine timing. And yeah, my boyfriend throughout college, he was a very, very stable person. And he had actually, had some experience under his belt. So like what I was doing wasn't entirely foreign to him. And I believe that he was the exact right person that I needed to be with because he was a safe man. He was a safe male in my life. And that was really important and a very healing relationship for me. So I am super grateful for that. College was the time when I was probably the least connected to my spirituality, although it was still there because it was, how I was raised. But that's when, it was kind of a dark time. It was a really dark time. And then after college, that's when I really kind of dove into my spirituality and yoga, meditation, started doing energy work. I started studying astrology, and that was really eye-opening for me.
Before we get into all of these nice modalities, I was not expecting to go this way, but because you mentioned that there was, I mean, I know this is like some 20 years ago, not a lot there about what the symptoms or what it looks like to have this type of abuse with the siblings. Can you or would you be willing to share what are some of those signs that this friend saw in you and recognize so that other people maybe can see and be aware in case they come across somebody that is going through that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So first off, my sibling, he was on drugs. He was on hard drugs at the time, and her brother who abused her was also on hard drugs at the time, and he actually died of a heroin overdose. So there was kind of that connection, right? They were both escaping the amount of shame that they were experiencing. So that was one thing that she noticed in the perpetrator, right? But then she also she saw how we interacted with each other, which I'm not exactly sure what she picked up on. But she just noticed an interaction between the two of us. And then a really important thing that she saw was our house and how our house was laid out. So we had the type of house, it was a big L-shaped house. On one end was where all the kids lived, and on the other end was where the adults lived. And it wasn't always like that, but as we grew up, that's kind of how it was. So like my mom ended up moving after the divorce, kind of moving to one end of the house, and the kids were on the other end of the house. So the separation was a big factor. And we kind of had like our own little world back there. Like we snuck out, we smoked pot, we like did stuff. Like it was like our own little world. And that was a really big factor. And I've heard that, like, I'm actually pretty involved in the sibling sexual abuse survivor community. And so if there's anybody listening who wants to get involved with that community, please reach out. I have plenty of resources that can help support you. So I've heard from a lot of people that this happened because of, the placement of the house or the layout of the house or, lack of supervision in a lot of ways. One thing is, I was babysat a lot, right? My mom worked, my parents were divorced, older siblings, gone and doing their own thing. And so so there were just a lot of signs. And then also, like I mentioned, with like the migraines and the nausea, I was, sick to my stomach all the time, the anxiety, thinking everybody hates me and, hurting myself, self-harm, wanting to end my life, things like that. But that all happened. She wasn't in the picture when all that was happening, but I do know that those are signs of other people who have also gone through similar things.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it almost sounds like you are so in the moment and the relationship that you don't know anything different. So how would you know that there's something wrong? But her coming from the outside, and also everybody in your family, like that's the dynamics of the family. Like how would
Mhm.
they know? But coming from the outside and noticing that there's a different interaction with this person than the other one, like that's huge. So so grateful that this person came into your life and saw that and oh, and actually intervened, like spoke up about it. Because that's also I feel something that so many of us see something or feel something, but we just keep it mum.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much gratitude for her courage, and then also my brother's courage for actually listening to her
That's
and
huge.
taking her seriously and not just writing her off. Um, and and yeah, so yeah, it was a very, I do feel like there was a lot of divine intervention in my life in general. I think if you pay attention, it's in all of our lives. And it is interesting to be able to like look back and see all of the things connecting the dots now with the knowledge and perspective that I have.
Amazing. Okay, so now let's get back to we went to college and then you started looking into all different types of modalities like yoga and things. And tell us a little bit more about that, like what got you interested in the first thing and how that will lead to the next and all of that.
Yeah, so when I was 22, after that conversation with my boyfriend, I enrolled in an 8-day leadership program. And this was a leadership program that one of my siblings had done and a family friend had done, and it was highly recommended. And that's where I first learned about connecting with the different parts of myself, as in my inner child, my inner critic, my nurturing adult. And this, it has been the cornerstone of my healing journey. It's been almost 15 years now that I have been studying and doing this work. And now I'm a licensed therapist and a holistic coach. And this is the bread and butter of the work that I do. Once I got involved in understanding these different parts and understanding my wounded younger self and how she was the one acting out. She was the one who was desperate for this attention because she hadn't been heard and her voice had been shut down. And, she was unaware of all of the pain and hurt that she had experienced. And so when I learned to listen to her, to give her a voice, to soothe her, to help her, really understand that she's okay now and she's safe now with me as the adult, right? Because before my adult wasn't really there. Like my adult was pretty MIA. And so it was really scary. And so she was, this younger part of myself was kind of running the show along with my inner critic, right? My inner critic, he, right? This part of me is a he. He has the rules for how I should be, how I should look, how I should act, how I should show up in the world. And it was very much based on achievement and being the best, all to hide the fact that I thought I was the worst,
The divine
right?
masculine.
Yeah, yes, very, 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 very masculine. I was a top athlete. I worked out all the time. I was a leader in a lot of these ways that was very much doing. I couldn't not do. Like I was always had to be productive. My nervous system was just on hyperdrive constantly, so I couldn't relax. I remember this one time in college getting mad at my boyfriend because he was relaxing and like reading a book. And I was just like, we have to do things. We have to like always be. And he was like, no, we don't. But it was this, and that has always stuck with me because so many people who experience trauma, their nervous systems are so heightened because you always have to be looking out for danger and, watching to see who's doing what and who's moving where and how are they acting. And you're constantly responding to that. So,
Is it also something that people would do like make themselves be busy and keep busy, like always finding something else to do?
Yep, 100%. So in college, I founded a sports team, ran the sports team, played 6 days a week. I worked part-time. I had internships and I did a double major while having a social life and a boyfriend.
So
And
this is what people are like, oh wow, this person, they're doing all these things and they're amazing, and not realizing these are all masking the pain or facing what the issue is.
yeah,
So there's no time.
100%. 100, and I don't regret any of it. Like I love it. I love that I am capable of doing that. And I loved the college experiences that I did have in the positive ways that I did. And they totally absolutely shaped me for who I am. And I was exhausted all the time. My body was rebelling against me. I had migraines constantly. I thought everybody hated me. My inner critic never could celebrate me for doing any of those things. It was always do, more, 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 more. I even got straight A's while doing all of that. And my inner critic was like, that's not good enough. You weren't taking hard classes even though I was taking upper division, double major, all of that stuff. It was never good enough for me. And I actually ended up having an injury that I knew. So I was like divinely tuned in. I had a foot injury that forced me to stop playing. And I knew this was my sign to tell me to slow down and start healing. And I intuitively just knew, like there was a part of me that was like, I have to start looking inward because my whole life I've been looking outward. And I know that the answer is looking in. And so that's what really took me on this journey. So broke up with the boyfriend, stopped playing the sport, moved out of the town, left everything behind and kind of just started fresh and got really into yoga, meditation, kundalini yoga. So doing a lot of breath work, and that was able to move a lot of pent up energy. And I attribute so much of my healing in those early years to kundalini yoga, because it was able to release a lot of the trauma that had been built up in my system for so long, and really reconfigure and regulate my nervous system. And so that was really powerful.
Amazing.
Um,
I'm familiar with breath work and moving energy out of the body through that. Um, I'm familiar with yoga and Kundalini awakening, but Kundalini yoga I have not heard. So can you explain a little bit more about that and how that works, how it feels, or what is it that you do in order to
yeah,
move?
yeah. So it's kind of like a combination of all those things that you just said, right? So, what we think of in the Western world as yoga is, think of vinyasa, right? You move through your sun salutations, you do your downward dog and all of that. But there are many different types of yoga, right? And so Kundalini yoga is one type of yoga. And you do things that are called kriyas, and they're basically a set of postures, and you hold these postures, and they are weird postures. Like you'll hold your arms up at like 60 degrees, or you'll do this a bunch, you'll move them up and down a bunch, or you'll shrug your shoulders a bunch, or you'll like twist a lot, all while using your breath. And so breath work is a big part of it. And the idea is that you're challenging your physical body here in a safe, contained way. So that way, when you go out into the world and you are challenged, you have the capacity to deal with it.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I'm gonna have to look more into that. Is that like
Yeah.
as you are describing it, I'm like my body is wanting to do it and I don't even know where it's taking me, but I'm like, it feels like I need to explore this more.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Yeah, and there's chanting and meditation and mantras. And so one Kundalini teacher that I really highly recommend is Jai Dev Singh, and he has an online academy that's all over the world. And I've been able to practice with him live in person quite a few times, and I highly recommend him. He's a cool guy.
Amazing. We'll look him up and maybe we'll even put the link in the description as well for anyone else who wants to look into that direction as well.
Yeah, so it kind of my journey has really I'm kind of the person where I'm like, "Oh, that's a healing method. Let me try it." Right? Like I just want to try it all. I want to figure it all out, right? Like I'm a double Scorpio with a whole bunch of Scorpio signs. So I just want to dive deep into all of the emotions, all the things, all the truth. So I've tried so many different things throughout my life, and a lot of them has resulted in healing. But I know you specifically wanted to talk about like EFT and how that has been a big healing modality for me. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it's also called tapping. And the reason it's called tapping is because you literally tap on yourself as you do it. And so, what is the point of that? Well, it is tapping on specific energy meridian points in the body. So, if you're familiar with how acupuncture works, right, you put needles at different energy centers, and it's the same thing, except instead of using needles, we use our fingers to tap on those energy centers. So, for example, if I was feeling super anxious, right, I would identify the feeling and then I would tap on that feeling. So I'd be like, I have all this anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm so anxious. I am so worried right now. I'm gonna just mess this whole thing up. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Now, for people who are all into like law of attraction, you might be like, why are you saying all this negative stuff, right? We have to be all like light and love, right? Well, the reality is you think all these negative thoughts all the time,
For sure.
right? Like they're there. So let's stop pretending and let's get real about it. And the more specific and real you can get about those thoughts, the faster and easier you can tap them out of your body and you literally will release them. So then they're gone on like a very real way as opposed to just, oh, I don't want to think about that anymore.
So it's like confronting it or giving it its space to the negative thought so that you can get it out of the way, as opposed to pushing it away, trying to deny it, trying to push it down, and it always continues to resurface in the background.
Exactly.
Okay.
So my teacher and really good friend, Steph Dodds, she has a huge YouTube channel. She's written a book on tapping and she's phenomenal. And she describes it like pulling a weed out of a garden. You have to go to the root and pull it out. If you just pull from the top, the weed is going to keep growing. So you have to go all the way down to the root. And so that's what we do with tapping is we want to hear the darkest fears, right? We want to hear the darkest beliefs. We want to like go there. And you can do this with memories. You can do this with negative beliefs about ourselves, like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. You can do it on emotions, like I said, with like anxiety or anything really. And you can also tap in the positive. You can tap in the affirmation. Like so you can say like I'm so grateful. Everything is going so well for me. I just have so much gratitude for all the good that is happening in my life and all the good that is continuing to come. You know, you can tap in the affirmative also.
So how does it how do you know what to say when you're like, okay, like let's say I'm dealing with some fear of public speaking, right? And I know that's scaring me. So how would I clear something? How do I know what to say as I'm tapping?
Yeah.
And then how do I know what to say in the positive?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why it's good to work with a practitioner.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, when I do sessions, I listen to my clients and I basically hear everything they have to say. So, for example, if you don't have a practitioner and you're doing this, you want to do this on your own, I would invite you to take a pen and paper and just write down all of your fears about public speaking. everything that you want to say. Or you could even record yourself, say everything you want to say. So, like, oh, they're going to hate me. Nobody's going to want to listen to what I have to say. Who am I to get up in front of a crowd? I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I don't have enough credentials after my name, right? All of those fears that we have around public speaking, and then we would tap on it. So there's specific points. So, right, you start here, you have here, you have here, and then you move it around. So it would be like, who am I to be public speaking in front of this group? I'm nobody. I don't know anything about this topic. I don't have the credentials. I don't have any letters after my name. I'm not smart enough to talk to this group. I'm a nobody. Why am I even speaking? Right? So then you keep going. You go and you go and you go and you go and you go. And then you might discover what's underneath that. Oh, maybe there's a negative core belief of I'm not good enough. Or maybe there's a negative core belief of I'm not worthy of attention, right? So then you kind of dig deeper, and I am fascinated by how quickly these things get revealed, right? Like, so I'm a therapist, so my whole job is to, right, kind of like dig down. And when I use tapping, it goes so much faster. So much faster. We are able to get to the root of problems in a much shorter amount of time than we are if we're just gonna like sit here and go back and forth and like ask some questions and things like that.
This is so good and so interesting because now it makes sense. Like when I tried EFT tapping on my own, it was more of like, here is a script of what to say for whatever it is that you want. And so then you're split by in between reading the script and doing the tapping. But this feels a lot more integrative because you are speaking out your actual feelings in real time. So you're not disconnected from your heart while you're reading a script, which uses just your mind. So that makes total sense. If it feels good. There's something that you mentioned there that I wanted to ask you. Oh, I know. You said you just keep going and going, and then you get to the real root. So what is that? Is it like you just write all these things of what you think it's the problem? Or, I mean, it is the problem, but it's like on the surface. But as you're speaking it and tapping it, you begin to release the real truth?
Yeah, that's what I find. That's kind of what I meant by like when I tap with somebody, we tend to get to the root a lot faster when we're actually tapping. So you might not get to it when you're writing. So start with whatever's real for you, start with that. And then notice, oh, I'm feeling sadness right now. Or, oh, I just got angry. Or, oh, I just got embarrassed. Right? Maybe there's a memory associated with public speaking and you got like humiliated in front of your school at like the school play or like something like that. Or, now all of a sudden this memory pops up out of nowhere and it's like, oh, maybe that's what's going on. And then you can start tapping on that memory. And it would sound a little bit like, I was getting ready for the school play and I was practicing my lines, and then I walked out on stage and all of a sudden I lost my mind, went blank and I couldn't think anymore, and I heard people in the audience start laughing, and then a teacher, helped me say my line and my face got red. Right? So now we're tapping on the memory because every memory that is like significant to us has an emotional charge. Right? We don't really remember things unless they have a significant emotional charge, right? Whether it's happiness, excitement, humiliation, sadness, whatever it is. So by tapping on the memory, you're releasing the emotional charge. So now it's just a story. Now it's just something that happened to you. Now you're not like, oh, that one time, right? Now it's more like, yeah, that one time that happened to me, and I'm moving forward.
So it sounds thus far to me that you tap into your thoughts, your emotions, you release the emotions. And then once you do that, do you also go the opposite way and begin to say affirmations in the positive to kind of like change it, or do you stop at the release of the memory?
Yeah. So you really follow whatever's coming up, and then usually I will put reframes in there. So a reframe is like looking at something from another perspective. So it might sound like if you're doing public speaking, it might be like, well, part of me thinks that I have nothing good to say, but I've said some pretty good things before. I've had some pretty good words come out of my mouth before. Like you might start there. Because if you just go to, I'm going to be the best public speaker ever, you're not going to believe that. It's not going to feel real to you. So you
Hmm.
kind of have to start with like something really basic of like, I've said some good things. I've talked in front of a crowd before. Maybe I could do this again, right? Like you start slowly and you start to kind of do some like little basic reframes. And this is kind of where the art of EFT comes in, where like when you work with somebody, I always say like it's a combination between the art and science. It's just like therapy. Yeah, I can walk you through all these steps, but there's also something that just kind of happens magically in the moment. It's kind of like I start to like channel a little bit and like words just kind of flow out of me and we're finished and the person is just like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't really know." Like, because all these like positive things started coming out and I'm just pulling it out of, thin air essentially, but I know it's coming for the exact right reason. It's the words that they need to hear. And I kind of trust the process. So again, it is challenging if you're on your own, if you haven't done this before. It's really helpful to work with a practitioner who knows what they're doing. And then once you get the hang of it and you feel confident, then you can go do it on your own. Like I do it on my own all the time, but it's because I've done so much repetition with it. And I started working with a practitioner early.
Amazing. So when someone comes to you for, whatever issue they're working on healing, how fast can they see results, or how many times? I mean, I guess depending on the depth of their wound, but like what is like a typical time frame for someone to release what they're going through?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer. If we're talking about just tapping, I can talk about my own personal experience. For example, I will call my teacher and I'll be like, I need a session. And if I do that, maybe I'm going like I've done that before, like going through a breakup. Okay. So if I'm going through a breakup, there might be lots of feelings there. There might be sadness. But then, okay, we tap away the sadness. Well, what's underneath the sadness? Maybe there's anger, right? So then we tap away the anger. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe there's fear, right? We start like kind of, it's like all these layers. And maybe in the first session or two, or maybe in the first session, we'll get to like two of those layers. And then maybe in the next session, we'll get to like more of those layers. Um,
So it's like it really is like a support system for you to release. I mean, if you've never done any healing, you go through whatever it is that you need in order to release what's coming up for you, and then you have that continuous support if you want it to continue to help you manage your life occurrences and things that happen.
Yeah. And I know like I'll do like a 4 session package, right? So it's like, okay, we're gonna do 4 hour and a half sessions. And in that time, we will get through maybe some like negative core beliefs, maybe some memories. But if you have something like specific, like I have, a lot of the times our negative core beliefs are associated with memories. That's where we form our negative core beliefs. So that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm unlovable, I'm not safe, the world isn't safe. These things come from our life experiences. So you might, when I start working with somebody, I'll go down a list and I'll say, like, literally, I'll read out those negative core beliefs. And then I'll be like, which one of these really hits you? And on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being totally 100% is true, or 0, like, no, that's not true at all. And so we'll have people rate it. And usually if it's higher than a 5, then this is something we want to start tapping on and really put some concerted effort into. And there might be a ton of memories associated with not good enough. And there might be one memory associated with not deserving, right? But like really just letting the process go where it needs to go. But tapping can be used for like weight loss. It can be used for creativity. I just finished a 7-month creative tapping group with my teacher Steph, and that was absolutely amazing. And I felt like my creativity, I have such a changed relationship with my creativity because of this 7-month group that we were just in together. And I was able to do so many creative projects in the last 7 months. And so I'm really grateful for that experience. But yeah,
That
it can
sounds
be
yummy.
done on so many things.
I love it. Yeah, that sounds really, really nice. When you started talking about the creativity, because I also paint, and I was just like, it sparked something. Oh, you can use tapping for that, tapping for that. Like this is it just really feels like an all around therapy or session. Seems.
Yeah, it's like magic. I've used it for injuries, physical pain. You can
Uh-huh.
use it for physical pain. So like I had this like knee problem, and I did some tapping on it with Steph, and we were able to really reduce the knee problem. My inner critic, like if I'm noticing that like my critic is just like so loud either towards myself or towards other people, we'll do a session on the inner critic. Conflicts with other people. This is actually really interesting. This one time I did a process where I had this memory with my mom that I actually don't remember, but I've heard about it. And we were able to go back and work with my inner child and kind of like paint this scene and like create this scene. And I was able to have this interaction with my mom, and have some really like forgiveness around it and have some soothing around it. And it was like such an intense emotional session. I'm so grateful for it. Afterwards, my mom reached out to me and just texted me, "I love you," like out of the blue.
I love that. Is this what you use mostly for you healing your inner child? And how did you know to use it? Or did you just find the right practitioner for you to release what you were going through?
Yeah. Great question. So my inner child journey started 15 years ago, and I started doing EFT 4 years ago. So I had been doing inner child work and parts work for a long time prior to me starting to do tapping.
Hmm.
But that being said, when I was 22, I went through that program in college, and I started learning about my inner child and all these different parts of me. It was there that I would do similar things. We would do scenes, like we'd paint the scene of, all right, how old were you? What outfit were you wearing? What did your hair look like? What did, the room look like? But the difference is sometimes people will do that and they'll actually go back and then they'll actually re-experience the trauma, but we don't do that. I don't do that. That is not my style of doing it. I kind of do more of like, we go to like, you know, we'll stand outside of the house
Mm-hmm.
or what, right? We don't need to go back to the trauma. Your inner child doesn't care what happened to you. All your inner child wants is to feel safe. And so that's something that's really important. A lot of people hold on to their story like, oh, this happened to me, and oh, this happened to me, and oh, it was so bad and it was so horrific. And like, I understand that and I have compassion for it. And in a big scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because your inner child was scared, overwhelmed, and was making beliefs about themselves. Beliefs like, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy. It all really comes down to those. So if you can just get to the root of those and start connecting with your inner child and help them feel safe and help them feel like they are worthy, they are lovable, they are okay, they are enough, that's where the healing comes in. So that's what I did. I
Yeah,
didn't,
I Go
yeah.
ahead.
I didn't do a lot of like, oh, let's go back to this one time when your mom beat you, or let's go back to this one time when your brother did this or did that. Like, that was not it. My healing was about connecting with my inner child and then
Yes.
doing things in my day-to-day world that helped me feel empowered, that helped me feel safe, that made me start to make healthy choices. And I did that by, starting to meditate, right? That's a challenging thing, and it calmed my nervous system. It helped me start to identify my feelings. It helped me be able to sit in the uncomfortability of silence, right? These things were they're healing. But sometimes we think that we have to go back and rehash all this stuff. And we really don't have to. I believe it's about befriending your inner critic and recognizing that your inner critic is actually here to protect you, soothing your inner child, and then strengthening your adult to be the one to lead you through life.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. I completely agree with you. We definitely no longer need to go back and feel all of the hurt that we went through. It's about acknowledging, and so you can release it and not deny it anymore. Because I think that's where the whole trauma begins. It's like pushing it down, don't want to hear it, don't want to see it, and then it just builds up inside. This has been
Yeah.
amazing. I really love everything that you have explained. Is there something else I haven't asked you or about it, or any other of the modalities that you use that you would like to share about?
Yeah, I will just mention this one thing. We talked briefly about kind of like the nervous system. And I think the nervous system is such an important part because when there is trauma, trauma isn't like an actual incident that happened. Trauma is an experience where you felt overwhelmed and where your nervous system was overwhelmed. That's really what research is showing us these days. It's not, oh, I got into a car accident, right? No, two people could get into the same exact car accident. One's going to have trauma from it and one's not going to have trauma from it, right? And there's reasons for that. It's because how is your nervous system feeling? Is your nervous system getting overwhelmed? So it's really comes down to soothing and regulating the nervous system. And that can be a tricky thing to do. So you can learn all the skills in the world that you want, but if you're not regulating your nervous system, if you're not understanding what that feels like to be dysregulated or actually regulated, then that's a problem. So there is this one tool that I use called the Safe and Sound Protocol. It's a music therapy. And it's created by Dr. Stephen Porges, who is a researcher and a psychologist, and works at one of the universities on the East Coast. I forget exactly which one, but he's been researching trauma for decades, and this music therapy actually retrains your nervous system to feel safe. And that is huge because a lot of us are walking around not feeling safe. Like, right? If you hear a loud noise, like jumping, right? That is like, okay, my nervous system doesn't feel safe right now. Um, so by listening to this certain music frequency, the frequency has been altered in a way where it's basically flooding your nervous system with safety, and it starts to and then your nervous system starts to recognize that safety. And it's kind of like taking your nervous system to the gym. It's like something where you can start to actually build the tolerance. And once you can build the tolerance, then you're able to handle whatever life throws at you, right? Because our anxiety happens when we are afraid that we can't handle something.
Uh,
So that's when your nervous system is able to handle things, then it's like, okay, well, whatever life throws at me, I'll be okay. I'm
so,
safe.
so this is so interesting as well. How would someone, I mean, just looking at the way the world is handling everything right now, excuse me, and there's so much separation and so much um, hate where we can't even express ourselves without the opposite view to just jump down, right? It's like we don't feel safe to even speak what we're thinking or feeling. Sorry, excuse me. Um, how would we know what to do to regulate our nervous system? Um, like, do we go and get this music? Like, or what else can we do if we don't have access to that?
Yeah. So, first is recognizing when it's dysregulated. And most people can't even notice that. So, when you are dysregulated, that is when you are in some on the spectrum of some sort of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And those are all survival modes, right? They're trauma responses, they're survival mode. So when we're in survival mode, that is when the nervous system is dysregulated. Well, a lot of people don't recognize when they are. So fight, okay? Some people think this is literally getting into a fist fight, but it could also mean arguing with somebody. It could also mean road rage, right? So that is an example of your nervous system being dysregulated. Or flight. You know, this could look literally like running away from somebody. This could also look like avoiding a hard conversation, right? Or emotionally checking out, or disassociating, or, you know, kind of zoning out, right? These are all certain levels of disassociation. I'm sorry. I mean, these are all different levels of dysregulation. Or people pleasing. People pleasing is also a sign of dysregulation. You just want to say whatever you need to say in order to get out of this uncomfortable situation, right? That's not coming from a regulated adult self. That's coming from an inner child who's in a survival mode, who sees things in pretty much black and white, and I'm just gonna do whatever it takes in order to make this okay right now, despite my own boundaries, despite my what it's good for me and everything else.
Despite what you
So,
want. I can see that in like kids. I was an educator for 15 years, and the fear that kids have when they do something wrong, whether it's because they believe they're gonna get punished at school or from home, and then
mhm,
they just say or do exactly what they think you want to hear
yeah.
instead of
Or or a kid is gonna fight you on it, or a kid's gonna argue with it, right? So
mm-hmm.
we all have these different adaptations. So
Yeah.
one kid might be the total people pleaser. The other kid might be literally running out of the classroom. The other kid might be yelling and talking back at you, right? The other kid might be quietly sitting in their chair hoping you never notice them, right? That's freeze.
I
That's
just
something, yeah.
yeah, I just got this visual and I heard and our teenagers go through all of those together,
Oh my gosh. Yes,
right?
right? All the time. We all go through all of these on some level. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, for me, I used to when I would have an extreme reaction, I used to not be able to speak. I like literally had to tell myself, like, open your mouth, like, clear your throat, because I was in such a terrified freeze mode. Um, or running away. When I used to get back in college, I used to get like really drunk. I would literally run away. And
Wow.
so all these can happen in different times, in different ways. But I think recognizing when you are feeling off, when you aren't in that logical, mature, centered, balanced adult place, you're dysregulated. And
What?
so
Mhm.
things that can help bring you back are, deep breaths, feeling your feet on the floor. And those are just surface level, like they really are surface level. To really do deeper nervous system, you want to move the body. Moving the body, because, right, if we think about that freeze, we're just like kind of staying still. We want to relax the body. We want to move it. We want to, like, think about dancing. Dancing is so present moment, so you're in your adult, so like regulated. So like moving the body in different ways can be super helpful. Listening to music is like, if it's good, uplifting, happy music, can be really regulating for your nervous system too. Writing, breath work, things like that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been so informative. I'm just loving everything you're saying.
I actually have a parts work and nervous system workshop happening on Thursday, September 26th.
Oh, that's
So
like
so I have all these like thoughts like prepared and like ready. I'm like, oh, I can talk about this. I've been working on this.
that is amazing. I'm gonna tell you why. Because your episode is gonna come out on the 26th.
Oh, very cool. Oh, that's
Yes,
exciting.
and it was not planned that way. It was gonna be
Oh,
something else. And I'll tell you more about it later. But it's like you just said that, and I just got confirmation. Like that's why I'm like, okay, let's do it. Amazing. I love it.
perfect. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. So over the next 4 months, I have 4 free workshops that I'm doing, and it's a workshop series. The first one is on the 26th of September, and that's parts work of the nervous system. I'm going over the basic of the parts work, the inner child, the inner critic, and the adult, and how they correlate with your nervous system. And then in October, there will be befriending your inner critic. November is soothing the inner child, and December is strengthening your adult. And I'm sure we'll have the link in the show notes. But those are free workshops available to anybody. If you just register once, you have access to all 4 of them. You'll get the replays if you're not able to make it live, and you can come to any of them. You don't need it's not like a prerequisite. You don't have to attend all of them. You can just drop in whichever one you'd like.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. I'm definitely going to tell the community all about that so that they can take advantage of that. If they listen to this on Thursday the 26th and then they want to sign up, can they still sign up for that and get
Yeah,
the
if
replays?
yes, you'll definitely be able to still sign up and get the replays.
Amazing. I love it. Wow. Okay. Tell us where can people get in touch with you? I mean, I know I'm going to put the links in there, but just can you like verbally say where your handles are?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is my first and last name. So Brinn Langdale, brinnlangdale.com, Brinn Langdale on Instagram and on YouTube. And yeah, I have a lot of free stuff, got a lot of freebies on my website. I have a travel guide to your healing journey, and that is an ebook and a video series. I also have a free quiz that you can get to know like which part of yourself is driving your life. And I have, of course, the free workshop series that I just mentioned, and as well as a 30 episode podcast and a blog.
Exciting, amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. I'll be sure to put all of that information in the description. Um, right before we go, tell us, is there anything else that you would like to just leave the audience with? Any last thoughts, ideas, anything that comes up for you that you have not yet shared?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for me to be here. And I just really encourage whoever's listening to follow whatever sparked you. If there was something that maybe I said or anybody really says that there's a little inclining, your intuition, that little voice says, "Ooh, I like that. I want to learn more about that. Ooh, that's cool." Follow that. That is your inner guidance. And that's your divine guidance. That's your higher self that is telling you where to go next. And, that's really what has gotten me to sit in this chair right here, right now, is just taking one step at a time, following those little hints that I got along the way of, oh, what's the next healing thing to try? What's the next person I want to talk to? Who's the next person I want to work with, right? So if there's anything that I mentioned at all where you got that little bit of, ooh, I want to check that out. And I really, really encourage you to do so, whatever that looks like in your life.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been really eye-opening, to say the least. So enjoy having this conversation with you. Thank you for
Yeah, thank you
sharing
so
this.
much. This has been wonderful.
Yes. Well, with that, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Well, wasn't that an amazing, full of information episode? I am just like on cloud nine here because this was so well explained and thorough. I just love her energy. If you are feeling pulled to learn more, definitely take advantage of her free workshop starting today, which is what I'm saying today now because it's coming out on the 26th of September. Um, Starting today, and she's got so much free stuff. And as she said, you um register for one and you get, the registration for all of them. So that's amazing. If this is feeling like something you want to try, I encourage you to try it and just try it, see where it takes you. If it doesn't feel that way, then obviously don't do it. But again, everything that you hear here, you always check in with you first. What feels good for you? Does it resonate with you? Do you like it? Do you not? Do you feel it's for you? If you feel like yes, then go ahead. And if you feel it's no, then just leave it and it's okay. With that, please leave us any messages, comments on here, like it, subscribe, and please share with anyone else that you might feel that will really benefit from this so that we can get the world out, the word out to the world, is what I'm trying to say. And if you need any other type of support, just make sure you find the person that really fits you, your energy, and allows you to feel like yourself, feel not being judged, right? Like you can be yourself. Talk about what you're going through and what you want to achieve and find that right person for you. With that, I'll really let you go now and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.